Welcome back to Living with a Classic, and welcome to part one of this Christmas special, which is a little bit different than what's usually on this channel. If you follow the channel, you know that I usually feature classic Jags on this channel, but today it's going to be a little different. First of all, we're outside. It's actually pretty freezing cold outside. I have lots of layers on. It's rather cold. It's November out here. It's the south of Sweden. It is quite chilly even though the sun's out. But if you might know anything about classic Jags, you know that they're from Coventry. And what else was made in Coventry between 1946 and 1956? Well, this little gray Fergie. It's a pretty beautiful winter day here today. It's one of the first days in a long time where it's actually not too windy to film or not raining or snowing the whole time. We had some snow during the night. There's a little bit right over there left you can see, but the sun's out now. It's a couple degrees above freezing, and I'm out here walking to my neighbor's house. Got some warm clothes on, a bag full of tools which I think I'll need, some camera equipment, some extra batteries. And let's see if we can do something about this old Ferguson tractor. It's been sitting for, I'm not exactly sure, but at least 5 years. But I think it's a little bit longer than that, and it's been sitting outside. So I'm just gonna walk up around the corner here. We'll have a look at it in just a little bit. And here we are. We're almost in the forest behind my neighbor's house. We got a big excavator over there. We have another tractor over here, which I think used to be red. I think that is a Macy Ferguson. And then we have this thing, a little gray Fergie. Got some things in the way, but we'll move that pretty soon. And this is basically one of the first looks I've had at it. I just looked at it once before, just to see that it was out here, but other than that, I don't really know anything about it. So I think I'll set up the camera, we'll move the stuff out of the way, and then we'll have a close look at it. All right, so we're losing the sun a little bit, so it's gonna get a little bit colder, but let's see what we can do before I get way too cold. The good thing is I only have about a 2-minute or 3-minute walk home, so I can go warm up and come back. So I thought we'd have a little bit of look around it and go over the plan. So the plan, what I wanna do is, I wanna get this thing fired up and get it driving out of here. It's been sitting out here, I think for about 2 years. My neighbor's dad has had this thing for years, and he passed away a couple of years ago, and they moved away from his house and put it here. And my neighbor thinks that before that it didn't run for about 5 years. So I don't know, maybe 7 years this thing hasn't run, but it could be longer. Before it was parked, he said that it did run really, really well. It would always start first time. However, he said I think that one of the last times that they tried to start it, the starter motor wasn't working, so they used a cranking handle, which is kind of neat. You can actually crank these things over by hand and it will start up. And he said that worked pretty easily. He said, however, the last time they tried to get it going, it would not start. He thinks it's an ignition issue. So I do have some new ignition parts for it that he ordered and never fit. So I think I have new points, condenser, and leads because they're kind of old looking. That's really all I got. I hope that the carb is okay. We're probably going to take that off and take it home. I think we're going to take off the starter as well. Take that home. So I will be doing some things over at the workbench to fix them up, because it'd be nice if the starter actually works, so I have to hand crank the thing. Other than that, the goal is to see if it will drive out of here. Depends really what happens with the weather. If the weather turns a lot worse like today, it's an absolutely gorgeous, beautiful day, which is sort of rare this time of year. If the weather turns really bad, I'm gonna, after this episode, I'll hook it up to a car or my tractor, pull it home, and continue working on it inside if it gets you know, below freezing and raining and snowing all the time. But my goal is to try and work outside. So I think we should start by maybe checking the oil. Dipstick is down here. Okay, it has some. Let's see. Yeah, it's right on the max and black, so at least, well, it's not leaking at least. And let's see if we can check the radiator. I think this thing should just, yep. There we go, and it seems to lock into place there. Okay, not looking too bad, and yeah, I can see some water right down there. Let me stick my finger down there. It's not looking great, but there's something in there at least. I don't know, is all of it that bad looking? No, there's only some sludge on the top. All right, so, I mean, at least it has water in it. Probably at least antifreeze as well, because it's been sitting out here for a couple of years, so if it didn't have antifreeze, it would have definitely cracked the block or cracked the radiator. So that's a really good sign to start out with. So just a brief talk about this really quite legendary machine. So the Ferguson TE20, or I believe TO20, TE stands for Tractors of England. I think TO was Tractors Outside England. 20 is supposed to be the horsepower rating, but I've heard that they counted horsepower different back then, so it's more like 28 horsepower. I mean, it's still not a lot, but I think where it really counts is torque. If I can find a torque figure, I'll put it down here in the video, but I mean, it's a big torquey engine. It's a gasoline powered engine. This one's a little bit different. We'll get to that in a little bit because they made lots of variants. They made a diesel one as well, but this is the gasoline one. What made these tractors so legendary was this thing back here, the 3-point hitch. This is, I believe, the first tractor to have a 3-point hitch and all the hydraulics built into the tractor. This means that when you hooked up a plow or something to it, it was hooked up right to the back of it and it wouldn't stick out that far. Tractors before this, such as the pre-war Fordson or something, you would just have like a hitch, and then you'd have to have the plow or whatever you had after it pulling it on wheels, basically like when you had horses before that. So this tractor was not meant for big farms or big farms that way. It was meant for smaller farms to replace horses, where this could do the same amount of work in an hour that basically a horse could maybe do in a whole day, and that you wouldn't have to feed it, wouldn't take up any space. You could also have much smaller fields because this thing will turn on a dime, and a lot of other things, and it was just a really good, dependable model. They made it for 10 years in a couple different variants. Like I said, they had a diesel, which I believe was a 3-cylinder Perkins diesel, which we can have a look at one of those. I could actually have a 3-cylinder Perkins in my own tractor at home. And then they had this, which I believe it's their own engine, but I believe it has some type of connection to Standard, or Standard Triumph, because they were built in the Standard factory in Coventry, so I'm guessing that some engineering was shared, and I just tripped over that. That really hurt. All right, so what makes this thing different is you see you have 2 containers up here. This thing can be run on 2 fuels. It can be run on gasoline, and it can be run on kerosene. And at least the reason they did this, I think, if I've understood correctly, kerosene was a lot cheaper back then, but you couldn't start these things on kerosene, so you had to start it on gasoline. And then I think over here you would switch it over onto kerosene once it got warmed up. I found the owner's manual for these, and it said that once, okay, this one has a different gauge, but the original gauge, there's supposed to be a green mark somewhere. When it hits the green mark, you can switch it over to kerosene. And then the last 2 minutes before you turn it off, you're supposed to run it on gasoline, just because they will not start on gasoline again, apparently. So let's have a look inside the fuel tank. That's the one thing I think I will probably maybe not get to use, because if this thing sat for so long, okay, this stuff stinks. All right, that stuff is terrible. Let's see if maybe the other tank is better. I'm guessing that this is the gasoline tank and the other one is the kerosene tank. Yeah, that smells more like gasoline, and that actually doesn't smell too bad. So we might be lucky. Maybe just emptying out, cleaning out the tank. We can at least use one side of the tank. Otherwise, we'll have to rig out some type of external system for it. Here's a battery, which is probably definitely shot, but it seems to be a standard 12-volt battery. So we'll fit that. I'm gonna have to look. I did find the owner's manual online, so I will check when I'm back at the house if this is a 12-volt system or if it's 6-volt. We'll see which battery we'll have to use. So it's a 4-cylinder. Got the spark plugs over here. I think this is the oil fill. It seems to be sort of spring-loaded, but it doesn't look too dirty in there. There's a starter that we'll probably have to take off if it doesn't work. Or I think I'll take it off anyway and have a look at it. Here is the generator. So you see it's quite a simple machine. You just have a generator up here. There's your water pump. Down there is a crank pulley. And there is where you can put the starter handle in. And over here is the carburetor. I believe that they are a Senef. Yeah, it says right here. A Senef carb. So that's the one thing. If this thing is all gummed up inside, if it's been run on ethanol fuel, then I guess I'll have to get a carb kit. I saw you could get them. They're actually not that cheap because I thought parts were cheap for these. But a carb kit is almost $60, $70. So we'll see if we can, get it to work without a carb kit. Just at least see if we can get it running. That's just the goal. Then it has an aftermarket modification. This is actually a drain pipe from a house, but it's put on here. And the only thing that's sort of unfortunate is, all right, it goes up like this, but it doesn't have a flapper on it. So hopefully not that much water has gotten in here, but the good thing is that it goes up here. So if there's any water, it's definitely stuck here, and no, it's not rusted through or anything. So I really think that's the first thing we gotta check, if we have any water in the cylinders. So I'm gonna remove the spark plugs. We'll have a look if we can see any moisture on them. We'll spray some penetrating fluid or WD-40 down there. That will get rid of any moisture if there is any. And then we'll see if this thing can actually be hand turned over, because that's really step one, if we can even revive this thing. Okay, so let's see if we can get these spark plugs out. I think first thing I want to do is just, even though it's just a 4-cylinder, I'm going to take a picture of it just to get it back together. The spark plugs in the right order, the leads in the right order, but I mean, it's really easy to look up the firing order. This is a very, very common old machine. I hope that they're standard size spark plugs. Yep, they are. Okay, well, maybe we should just see, since they're actually up here on the side, there's actually no real debris around them, so I'm not really worried that anything's gonna go in the cylinders. I will blow a little bit on them. Okay. Here goes nothing. I mean, who knows how long these have been on here. It hasn't really been used regularly for since my neighbor was a kid, I think he said, and he's as old as I am, so hey, no way, that actually turned. I think we'll get an extension on it. Okay, we're getting some turnage. Okay, well, step one, they all actually turn. So I'll take them all out one by one and lay them out, see what they look like. Here is the first one. I mean, it's a little sooty looking, but definitely can't see any rust on it. Let's lay that to the side. The next one is a little oily looking, and sooty black as well. A little bit of green stuff on here, so I mean that might be some type of corrosion, but it's not rusty at least. This one looks pretty similar. It's a little lighter color up on the spark plug and some of that green stuff as well. So that one is not as sooty. So maybe the other two have been burning a little bit of oil. And this one is completely black. Starting with cylinder 1, I mean, it's sooty, but there's no mechanical damage to it at least. Next cylinder, there's some green stuff on there, a little more sooty. This one more looks like it had the right fuel mixture. A little stuff there on the electrode. And this one, like I was talking about, it looks like it's sort of flat and the electrode's really worn. So I wonder if it's just a worn spark plug and someone tried to flatten down the electrode to get the correct spark gap. But maybe they're not actually the same brand. Let's see. Yeah, that could be it actually. So this one's an NGK. It's more smooth around there. And the Bosch ones are flatter. Oh yeah, that's it. So they're just different plugs. I do have new plugs to go into it. The Champion plugs are supposed to be in it. They're at home. But now it's time to squirt some liquid in here. Let that sit for a little bit, and I think we'll tackle taking the carb off, and then we'll see if this thing actually spins over. After spraying down the cylinders, I went around and sprayed everything with some rust penetrating fluid that I think I'll have to remove. So fuel inlet here on the carb, the mountain bolts or nuts here for the carb, over here for the air intake as well. Then on the other side, I also did the same thing for like the stuff over here on the fuel bowl. I'm gonna see if I can figure out, maybe Google really quickly, which way it's off on this, if I can get this thing to turn. It's stuck on this side now, so if there's a way to turn off the fuel, because it would be probably a good idea just to remove the tank and take that with me home so I can dispose of the fuel safely, see if I can clean it out and at least use one of the tanks. But I thought that while I wait for it to soak in on these fittings, because I really don't want to break any of those off, I will remove the starter, because the owner says that he had some issues with the starter, so I thought I might as well remove it. I'll take it home because I'm going to take the carb home with me as well. Then I can have a look at it in the workshop, see if I can open it up, clean it up, and see if I can get it working again. It's going to be hard with some shadows here because the sun is, it's over the trees now, but that looks like 1/2 inch. I think it's just one up there and one down over here. And that looks like it's 7/16, so we'll start with that. Yeah, that moved really nicely actually. Just so you guys are with me on this, this is definitely not a restoration or anything. I just want to see if I can get this thing going. I was over at my neighbor's for, we were invited over for brunch, and he was talking about some of the vehicles he has out here and how they're not really running, and he asked me for some help with one of them. So we have another tractor as well, and an old scooter and some other things he just want to help to get going. And I went out and had a look at this one. I thought, it's kind of cool that it was built in basically the same place as Jags. I thought, why not? This would make a fun video for you guys. So there is no budget really. It's just about seeing if we can get this thing going, and if we can get it driving as well. That would be really neat. Okay, this is going to be a little bit fiddly because I forgot to bring a socket set. I only brought the socket for spark plugs, and I didn't think about any other socket set. So it'll be a little bit fiddly, but I'll have it off in just a moment. I think that's all of the bolts. It's just a little bit stuck on there. But I did actually bring a rubber mallet, so let me get that. Okay, I thought I did. I need to do a much better job at packing, but I have the universal hammer. And There we go. Moved over into the sunshine here a bit so we can have a look. I mean, if that's not proof this thing's been sitting for a while, that there's cobwebs on the gear of the starter motor, then that's really proof. It looks very much like a Lucas starter motor that they, they pull in. The older Lucas starter motors that are shooting out. At least all of this is moving, and okay, it's all turning at least. Let's see, yeah, it says Lucas here, 12 volt. Okay, that's good. The tractor is 12 volt. Then I can just grab one of my spare batteries at home, made in England. So we'll bring this home, see if we can get this to burst into life. All right, I wasn't able to see exactly online how this thing's supposed to be because I can only see it for the one that's only gasoline. But after some penetrating fluid, I managed to get this thing to actually move. This is the way it was. So I'm guessing that since I think the last time they ran this thing on gasoline, I'm guessing that the way this side points is where the fuel comes from. So that's gasoline, that's the kerosene. And I'm just guessing that maybe the middle is off. So let's go over to the other side. We'll see if we can crack the opening, the fuel inlet into the carb, and hopefully we don't have any leaks coming out. And this is actually holding tight. Okay, I've sprayed this thing down a couple times, so okay, it's actually moving. Take it back and forth a little bit, but hey, it's actually moving. I just move this thorn bush out of the way. Well, it's a little bit out of the way at least. All right, it smells like bad gas at least, but I'm actually not seeing anything drip out so far. Who knows, this thing could actually be completely plugged as well. Okay, there we go. And I'm not seeing a massive flood coming out or anything at all. So we'll keep an eye on that, but hopefully that means that I managed to close that thing. Let's just see, I think I'll have to remove that hose over there, and I think it's just two little nuts there, and there's probably some kind of throttle linkage over there. Oh, I can't believe that actually turned. Okay, that seems to be sort of loose now. I think I'll actually remove the whole pipe, clean that out, because there's no point in cleaning out that carb and then just filling it with gunk again if this might be full of, I don't know, anything. Here's the air filter housing. I think originally there's a pipe that goes here, so that takes in air over here, which is a little bit odd, but I guess they wanted cool air to come in here. Oh, I can't believe these things are actually turning. These look to be like original style hose clamps. At least I hope I can get these off, because I just realized I did not bring a knife. Once again, I need to get a lot better at packing when I come out here next time, because I've forgotten a few really good things, but so far I've been lucky. Those hose clamps are proving a little bit difficult. I mean, they'll turn a bit, but I mean, it's probably enough to get them out. So I'm gonna see if I can loosen up the carb here, figure out the linkage, and then when I get the carb off, I think I can get that metal pipe off as well. Okay, they're actually turning. Just, moving everything a little back and forth. Okay, I think this is actually gonna work. Was this the point where I think I just jinxed everything? Probably. So the next bolt is probably gonna snap. It definitely does smell of old gas. So how's that, really varnishy, or I don't know. What do you guys think old gas smells like? I think it smells like turpentine. It's like the only thing I can kind of relate to. I always I remember the first time I really smelt old gas was when I picked up my XJ12 and it had been sitting for 15 years. And I mean, it actually ran on that fuel, which was really amazing, but that fuel tank, it smelled, at least to me, I thought it smelled like turpentine. But let me know in the comments down below what you guys think old fuel smells like. See if the carb will, okay, it's pretty loose in there. Don't really know how to get the throttle linkage off. It looks really odd because there's a rod up here. I think this is a hand throttle only tractor. I don't actually know. Then there's some weird springy stuff over here, and then there's a rod over here. And yeah, I don't really know. If you're wondering, I have never driven one of these, so that will be a fun experience as well if you do get it going. I've driven a few other vintage tractors from the similar era, but they've mostly been diesels, or only been diesels, so I've never driven a gasoline powered one, but I've heard that this is supposed to be a fantastic little, extremely versatile, tough little tractor. Okay. Okay, here's the delicate thing. I don't want to ruin... Oh, I know why there's multiple linkages. I was being kind of silly. I mean, that one's a throttle, and this one up here, which goes through this really weird linkage up here, is the choke. So I almost got it off. The throttle linkage was just sort of pushed in there. And there's a little cotter pin here, which I almost got out. There it is. We'll be replacing that thing anyway for the choke mechanism. And all right, one little cute Carb Off. At least it looks like it hasn't frozen or cracked or anything, and everything is still moving freely. We definitely do have signs of moisture over here. So it's going to be interesting to see what that thing looks like on the inside. And it seems like there's probably some kind of choke thing to, I don't know, that when the choke went on, it would crack the throttle a little bit. Not really sure about that, so we'll have to read instructions how this thing's supposed to be set up. There's a couple normal settings, but at least it looks really complete. So we'll take home and clean that off. Now, I guess it's just on to see if this thing actually will crank over. Okay, so slight change of plans. So the next thing I thought I was going to do was to crank it over with the hand crank. The owner told me he had cranked it over in his youth with the hand crank. So I said, yeah, I saw that thing laying there. I thought this was the hand crank, but it's not. It's just a regular 1/2 inch something with a socket on it. It doesn't fit at all. And I've been looking around over here, and I can't find the hand crank at all. And I'm starting to get really quite cold out here. Maybe I can actually do the old trick, pull the fan belt and see if it turns over. So we got the crank pulley down there. I might need 2 hands for this, I think. Yeah, I'll set up the camera with 2 hands. Let's see if I can actually turn this thing over. All right, I'm setting you guys up on this side. So you have that hose there, right over there with my finger pointing. See the belt on there? That is the crank pulley. So we're gonna see if that thing turns over when I pull it on the other side. So keep your eyes on it. Let's see if this actually works. Okay, do you see that? You see it's actually turning? Let's see if we can. All right, that's actually turning really easily now. I'm just putting some extra pressure on the belt, using the fan to turn it. Okay, this thing is definitely, it's not locked up. I mean, ideally, I want to make a full revolution. Let's see if I can get like a screwdriver or something in there to turn it over. Yeah, that's not working, but let me try a little bit more with the belt. Okay, this thing is it's actually turning over. Okay, so I just sprayed some more lubricant down into the cylinders and putting the spark plugs back in so we don't get any moisture in them, and I'm gonna let them sit. So it turned over easily. It didn't turn over a complete revolution, but it felt extremely smooth. I felt no binding or anything, so I'm gonna skip that step a little bit if I can't find that handle, because there's no bolts or anything down there. It's just, you know, marks for starting handle, so it's really hard to start it without the correct starting handle. But we'll also ask the owner if he knows where the starting handle is. But one last thing I thought before we go, it's starting to get rather cold. Let's just have a look inside the distributor, see if it's really bad or if it's just terrible. Well, I think I know why it doesn't run. There is no there's no rotor in here. I saw one laying over here actually. Let's see. Here's one. So that's a good anti-theft device. Just remove the rotor and your tractor won't start. So I hope that's not the reason why it didn't start when they were trying to start it, because then I feel really bad trying to crank this thing over with no rotor. And I'm guessing that I thought this thing had points somewhere inside, because he had purchased a set of points for me that should go with this tractor. Okay. All right, just feeling a little bit confused here, but I mean, since it says top on that, maybe this is something that can actually be removed. Let me get a little screwdriver, see if that can pop up. All right, I need two hands there for a little bit. I just pried here with a screwdriver and this cover lifted off. And there we have some points down there. Let's see. And they're definitely in terrible shape. There's no way this thing would run with them, but I'll bring out the new points and replace them when I'm out here next time. I don't want to take this thing out because it's probably timed correctly, and let's just not bother with that. So, yeah, points are in there. They're in terrible shape. We'll bring out the new ones. Hopefully they're the correct ones. Otherwise, we'll just clean those out, because it does seem that there will be a gap. It's starting to open there, and I think there will be a gap. So we'll put this all back together. Got the cap. Let's see if I can get this one-handed. All right, that's all on. We'll put that back. I don't think, well, I'll come back a little bit later today. I'll put some duct tape over that, just don't get any water in there, because it rains from the side here sometimes. And one last thing, I want to check if this thing is positive and negative earth, and that is the negative battery terminal there, and that goes to back there, so it definitely seems to be negative earth. That's good when I'm going to test out the starter. And then down here is the starter solenoid. These things you start by, not sure exactly which gear, but I think it's the middle one or one of them. So you put down the clutch, and then you don't go all the way, but you sort of push forward in one of the gears, I think. I'm gonna read the manual again which one it was, and it starts. However, he said that didn't work, and that the last time they used to start it, they just used a screwdriver down here. So let's see if we can maybe bring that back, but let's first see if we can just get the starter going. So I'm gonna pack up all my stuff here for now. I think that this went really well, actually, because it turns over, got the starter off. It's not completely rusted solid. carb is not completely rusted solid. We'll see how it looks inside. So I'm going to cover all this back up. I'll walk back to my house before it gets too cold. Then we'll go out into the workshop once I've warmed up a little bit more. See if we can get some life into the starter, and also let's see if we can get this thing actually working. All right, while I was packing up, I realized one last thing. I was completely backwards with the choke and the throttle, which some of you guys probably already noticed, but I forgot that this is an updraft. So I keep thinking that, you know, it's a side draft. It's not. So this thing over here, which opened, you know, the butterfly over here, that's of course the choke, and the one up here is of course the throttle. So that makes a lot more sense now. So there is a little, where did it go? That little knob there. So you see when I turn that knob, that moves, so that's the choke. This is the throttle up here. And when I move that, that whole spring-loaded thing up there moves, and that moves that down there. So, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And then there's some other stuff down here. That, okay, that seems to just be actually a lock for the bonnet. So, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna read up on some of the controls as well, and we'll see. I've packed up all my stuff again. Just got that camera left to go, and hopefully we can get all these things working. One last thing I did notice, which could be kind of fun, this thing is straight piped. There's no muffler on it, so I'm guessing it's going to be quite loud if it does start. And that's it for part 1. Join me in a week's time for part 2, where we'll hopefully get this thing started. We'll have a look at the carb, see if that's salvageable or what can happen there. We'll also have a look at the starter and see if we can get that working. I have talked to the owner. He does have the starting handle for it, so it won't be an issue crank starting it by hand if I have to, if I can't get the starter going. But I really hope I could get the starter going. That would just make life a lot easier. The plan is that this will be a 3-part Christmas special, so in part 2 we can hopefully get it going. If that goes well, in part 3 we'll see if we can get it to move, and if it can move away from its resting place, we'll go for a drive out on the woods there behind my neighbor's house and hopefully see what things work on it, what doesn't work. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. Leave a comment down below what you think of this old tractor, if you think it's a fun Christmas special. Let me know if you maybe have an old tractor or have worked on an old tractor like this one. Also, if you want to support the channel, I do have a store, so if you want to get something cool for Christmas, like we have sweaters like this one, we've got t-shirts as well, stickers and mugs. You can check out my store down in the description below. Anyways, until next time, I'm Adam, and this was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.